He came to the practice to see his GP, and the GP immediately referred him to me. This was just before Christmas. And it was actually on the last day before everyone broke up for Christmas, so trying to activate services was quite tough. He'd just been mugged, had his NHS walking stick stolen. He was quite tearful, very anxious, so sat him down, found out what the issues were, and it soon became apparent that there was this whole history of things.
Since 1997 I ran quite a successful company, and we ended up with a recession, weathering the worst of it, but people stopped paying us, and ended up where we lost the company, 12 people out of work, and ended up losing my house, the business obviously, and my previous co-director Peter, he died of a massive brain tumour within 5 weeks of them finding it. And then the love of my life, after 35 years marriage, said, right, I want a divorce. I ended up living in an old caravan. Didn't have any facilities, no heat, no electricity, no water, no running water. And I was referred by my doctor because I was getting further and further depressed and spiralling downwards. I met with Phil early in the new year, after the after the council was closed over Christmas, and very quickly he got me into sheltered accommodation. Initially I didn't really want, I'm not exactly fighting and kicking, but I was very nervous about going into sheltered accommodation because I'd become a bit of a hermit in this caravan. So I went in there, got in there the 5th of February, I think it was, I moved in there. And Phil's been extremely helpful. So, he had a great can-do attitude, and it wasn't just like can-do, but he did. He set out how he was intending to help me before Christmas. 10 days shutdown, and then within a very short period of time, I was in the sheltered accommodation. Phil's going to be helping me, hopefully, to become more comfortable with meeting with people again, because I find that now extremely difficult. Even family members. The first year after my divorce, I was invited to my daughter with my grandkids and son-in-law for Christmas, and I just couldn't face going to them, so it's been quite a spiral downhill. I always found it very difficult to ask for help, and I didn't anticipate when I met with Phil. I just said, look, I'm becoming a hermit again, I'm having problems. I've been having some very dark thoughts as well after 5 years by myself, and now I can see that there is hope at the end of the tunnel. So Phil's going to be tomorrow I've got an interview with the local leisure centre that I'm going to be doing, I forget how many weeks it is, use of the training facility, or for the whole leisure facility, to try and get fitter again. I put about 2.5 to 3 stone on since my fighting days, as it were, since losing the company through inactivity. And Phil's going to help me get a bit more physical mobility, and probably more importantly the emotional side of things back on track.
Yeah, I'm certainly physically, I'm not exactly going to run a marathon, but I've got a lot more mobility back. I've had these surgical procedures on my back. I wouldn't have gone to those appointments previously, I would have just continued to spiral downwards. I've no doubts about that. And where I'm at now is that I made a friend, there was a lady friend I got to meet at the residents' dinner, and she's got MS, and she's been housebound for about 3.5 years. I've been able to now go and help her, take her out to places she used to go to, and she's walking a little bit easier now than she was in January when I first got to meet her. So it's nice to kind of, if I can pay it forward, to be able to help other people, whereas previously I was just literally, I was in a downward spiral. Yeah, well, I've been to my daughter and my son-in-law and the grandkids every Christmas since then. I've also been to family occasions, like family celebrations, been to quite a few of those, especially the last 2 years. And just yesterday, as a friend of mine, his wife's been very ill, I went over to visit him, and I stayed at my sister's the night before. I went to visit one of my other sisters for a coffee. And going back even 2 years ago, I would have found that so difficult. I would probably have just not done any of it. Well, a couple of years ago, I bought an old barge that I started to convert for wheelchair access people to use, wheelchair bound people to use. The idea being they'll come aboard for a couple of days break, a bit of a respite care with the carer or members of the family. And I'd not been able to, through my physical health, I'd not been able to do that. But I'm looking forward now. I'm getting involved with Beverley Men in Sheds, and there's a couple of the people there, marine engineers. So one of them last week came aboard the boat, in fact earlier this week. And from Tuesday next week, he's going to be able to give me maybe a couple of days a week to help me do it. So it was aired with a couple of 5-minute broadcasts to air from Radio Humberside, and local companies jumped in, very generously donated a lot of materials, but there's only me to kind of put those start converting the boat, and my health just hasn't been conducive to that. So now I'm feeling a lot better with that, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to more project manage it rather than rely on my inability to, I'm not the Superman I used to be. I used to be very fit, and I've got a long way to get back to those levels. I've had the intention to do it, but just not physically been able to do it. But with the connections that I've made and Phil's help, Phil's been instrumental in that, it's good now that we'll be able to move that project forward as well. And that'll benefit other people, further down the line.
So from where Mike was when I first met him, this was a guy that his confidence, his own self-belief in his own abilities, even the fact that he just could not see a future. For him, he'd lost everything. And within 12 months of support, partly through me, partly through the Connector team, and him engaging in the other element of the service, which is the social group side through the Builders team and the Smile Foundation. Mike now has new hope. He feels that he has more of a stable life. He's making new friends. His financial stability is stable again, so he can now afford to go and buy food. And he's got this newfound zest for life, I guess, really. He's got a smile on his face. He looks forward to getting up in the morning, and he can see a future for himself.
Yeah, when I first came here 2 and a bit years ago, I was seeing Dr. Little very frequently. Terrible mobility issues, a lot of pain, really serious pain problems, and I was seeing him quite regularly. What I've found since being involved with Phil and the team is that whilst I may see a doctor specifically, it's nowhere near as frequent, so the number of appointments that I was taking up, they're now available for other people, to get into the system. And I think a lot of that is down to the success of meeting Phil at the sharp end. And, that's just been great.